Yes, so I'll give us a formal welcome. Hello and welcome to Volume 7 of the Ditch Diggers Dialogue. For those who don't know me, I'm Ashley Hudson, the Operations Manager for the Heavy Construction Contractors Association. Today's session is especially significant because this is HCCA's first ever all-women's leadership panel. Shortly, you will hear from Katie Kosloski, Plant Manager of Luckstone, Cathy Underwood, President of Branch Builds, Cathy McGhee, Director of Research at VDOT, and Lisa Wagman Glezer, Senior Vice President of Wagman Heavy Civil. But first, as required by HCCA bylaws and in the absence of our usual in-person dinner meetings, David Jürgen-Doniger, President of HCCA, will conduct our annual meeting. And David, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Ashley. And I'm very excited about today's panel and the programming. Unfortunately, we have to do some requirements based on our bylaws, so I will do my best for these, but also give the appropriate attention to the items we need to discuss today. Again, welcome to the HCCA annual membership meeting. It's my duty to officially call the 2020 annual meeting of the HCCA membership to order. Thank you all for being here. It is very much appreciated. And what says 2020 more than a virtual Zoom call for our annual meeting? According to Article 5, Section 3 of the HCCA bylaws, the HCCA Board of Directors is led by officers who are elected from the Board of elected to the Board of Directors, from the Board of Directors. Officers serve 2-year terms, and 2021 will usher in a new set of officers. These officers were served from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st of 2022. The officers for the 2021 and 2022 term will be as follows. President, Glenn Kaufman of the Kaufman Group. Vice President, TJ Rogers of SW Rogers. Treasurer, Mark Rodenberg of Total Development Solutions. Secretary, Michael Trabuco of Shirley Contracting. The immediate past chair and president will be filled by me, David Jürgen-Doniger of WG Construction. Let's go ahead and take a moment to thank these officers in advance for their service, as many of them have also put in quite a few years of service leading up to their role on the executive committee. As we close out 2020 and my term as president is finishing, it would be significantly remiss of me not to recognize Greg Smith of Shirley Contracting for his term on the board of directors. He's the outgoing immediate past president. Greg's tenure has been remarkable, and we've seen a lot of changes in growth in the industry during his time on the board of directors, which is a cumulative amount of 12 years. We appreciate, Greg, your leadership and certainly your commitment to the industry and the association. Thank you very much, Greg. And I know you're not going to be too far away, and we definitely have your phone number. Beyond the officers, the board is comprised of 8 directors who are elected to serve a 2-year term. Traditionally, 4 members rotate off every single year in alternating years, completing their terms with 4 new members being elected to replace them. Due to special circumstances in 2020, fortunately not related to COVID, we have 5 members rotating off in 2020, and hence we will need to elect 5 new members. This morning, the main purpose of the annual meeting is to confirm the election of the new members to the HCCA Board of Directors for the 2-year term beginning January 1st, 2021 and ending December 31st, 2022. As per our norm, we reached out to our membership and asked for new individuals whose names came forward were sent out to our voting membership in October. The 5 individuals who received the most votes from the ballot of the voting members of each of our member firms are as follows. Scott Shorb of Superior Paving, Jim Craig of Branch Civil, Bob Myers of Allen Myers, Megan Myers of Luckstone Corporation, and Mike Schenkel of Kelvick Construction. Further, in accordance with the bylaws, we offer the members at the annual meeting to vote on these candidates and to offer any nominations from the floor. This is a point where you can unmute your microphone, both to confirm this slate or to offer any floor nominations. Do I hear any nominations from the floor to be discussed regarding this slate of new directors for 2021? Hearing, I would entertain a motion to confirm that we elect these 5 individuals to the HCCA Board of Directors for the 2020 and 2021 term by the quorum of members attending the annual meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Glenn unmuted. Thank you, Glenn. All in favor signify by saying aye or putting a thumbs up if you have your video camera on.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And any opposed signify by saying no. Thank you. The motion is passed. Scott, Jim, Bob, Megan, and Mike are elected to the HCCA Board of Directors for the 2021 and 2022 term. Congratulations to you all, and thank you in advance for your service. The HCCA appreciated the commitment and hard work of the outgoing directors. I'll read their names now, and I'm going to make a little bit of commentary prior to turning this back over to Ashley and our panel that we have coming up this morning. Thank you, John Blakecki of Luckstone, John Randall Gorby of Lane Corporation, Justin Campbell of Branch Civil, and Greg Smith of Shirley Contracting. We will formally honor the outgoing board members at our January meeting in 2021 after their term officially expires. But again, similar to what I said about Greg, I need to say a couple comments at this particular meeting. Although most of 2020, we've literally phoned it in over Zoom in sessions similar to like this one. These board members, the 4 outgoing board members and the other board members, have put in a tremendous effort, and it has been remarkable to work with this group. Everyone came to meetings prepared, and we have done some amazing things and pivoted, to steal one of the buzzwords from 2020, to make this association continue to be a force in the legislature in Virginia, in the community, doing community service, and of course, providing scholarships and training education for our industry. It's truly remarkable, and I've been honored to serve on this board for those, this year and all the time that I've served. At this moment, I'll open the floor if there's any further business to discuss at the HCCA Annual General Membership Meeting. Does anyone have any additional business to present? Hearing none, I'll open the floor again. Please unmute yourselves to make a motion to formally adjourn the 2020 Annual Membership Meeting. Hey,
Motion
TJ.
to adjourn the annual meeting.
Glenn, thank you for the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, TJ. All in favor, say aye or put your thumbs up.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the 2020 Annual General Membership Meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Thank you everyone for all of your support. It's been an honor to serve in this capacity over the last 2 years as president of the HCCA. And without further discussion from me, I'm going to turn this back over to Ashley and this wonderful panel of high horsepower leaders that we have in our industry. And I wish everyone a wonderful and joyous holiday season, and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, David, and thank you for your service on the board of directors, especially for the past 2 years as president of the HCCA. And thank you to all the outgoing board members, as noted by David. So let's jump into the Women in Construction panel. As you all know, workforce development is a major priority of HCCA. In general, the construction industry struggles to find and keep hardworking, dedicated people. As the workforce ages nationwide, 41% of the workforce is slated to retire by 2031, as cited by buildyourfuture.org. HCCA collaborates with several professional organizations to recruit new workers. Our member firms hold their own hiring events and participate in community events, but the need for people is still on the rise. The goal of today's event is to educate the HCCA membership on increasing workforce development through diverse outreach. According to OSHA, women make up only 9% of the construction industry, one of the lowest rates of any industry. While progress has been made, women and minority populations still remain underrepresented at all levels. So where are we missing the mark? What can be done to address this issue? This panel will discuss the challenges, progress, and successes for women in construction, inclusion on a general level, and other opportunities for workforce development. I welcome all participants on the call to type questions into the chat box as we go, and we will read them off at the end. Or at the end of the call, you will also be free to unmute your mic and ask questions of our speakers. So to begin, our panel of 4 individuals will give us self-introductions. They're going to share with us their career path, what inspired them to pursue it, any key challenges or support they had along the way. And I will turn it over to begin with Katie Kosloski.
Thanks so much, Ashley. I first wanted to say my sincere appreciation to HCCA for hosting this conversation. I'm extremely excited for all the topics we're going to cover and to share the stage with these incredible women today. So as Ashley said, my name is Katie Kosloski, and I am currently a plant manager for Luckstone at our Atlanta Stevens operation located in Atlanta, Georgia. I was first exposed to mining as a student in the Virginia Tech engineering department. Fell in love with the idea of being able to work out in the field and not behind a desk for the rest of my life. And boy, did I find it, that's for sure. I immediately found Luckstone and was attracted to the way that they did business. Not only was it a motto on the wall, but we truly do aim to do good, to do well, and really felt like that was something I wanted to be a part of. I started with the organization as an intern for 15 months in between my junior and senior year in college. And after graduation, joined their engineering group, where I was working on reserve plans and mine designs for all of our Virginia and North Carolina operations. About 3 years in, I was really tired of sitting in rooms where I couldn't understand the operational challenges that all the guys in the field were talking about. I decided I wanted to move into that realm of our business. So in 2016, I took a foreman trainee or a supervisor trainee role at our Goose Creek operation in Leesburg, Virginia. And since then, have had the opportunity to understand and work in our operations and our extraction teams, be a part of some really cool projects, and then was asked to help as we bought this quarry down in Georgia and integrate this team into our safety and values-based leadership culture. I will say one of the things that has really helped me in my career, I remember being the only woman in that first meeting and looking around, we wear our years of service on the side of our hard hat, and all of those years of service equating to more years than I had in age. And someone just leaning over to me and saying, hey, you know, you're here for a reason, we want to know your opinion. And that has stuck with me my entire career up to this point. So very, very thankful for that, and excited to hear from the rest of the panelists.
And now we'll turn over to Cathy Underwood for introductions.
So good morning. As Ashley said, I'm Cathy Underwood with Branch Builds, recently promoted to president of our organization. So I began my non-traditional journey long before I started at Branch. And so I have 3 older brothers, and I think because of that, they were very encouraging to me all along, and always encouraged me to chase my dreams and my passions. And so when I graduated from high school, I also went into the engineering program at Virginia Tech and studied biological systems engineering. And through encouragement from my primary advisor and undergraduate, I stayed and got my master's degree and worked to specialize in wood construction while I was there. When I graduated, I ended up joining Branch through a connection, and thought that I would work in the construction industry to get some experience on the other side, and then ultimately transition back to the engineering world, but ultimately really fell in love with the company and what I was doing. And just as Katie said, I didn't have a strong desire to sit behind a desk all the time, and my work in our construction company allowed me the flexibility to be in the field and in the office, which worked very well for me. Not long into my career at Branch, I was asked to join the operations teams, and honestly, it was intimidating because I didn't know that much about the operations side of our business, but it was also exciting because I knew that was where rubber really met the road, and you learn a lot and you get the opportunity to be on site even more. So ultimately worked as a project engineer to support some of our project manager and superintendent teams. Ultimately promoted to project manager, where I had a chance to run projects with superintendents, and ultimately was asked to take on a challenge that we were facing within the organization, a strategic rework or strategic plan where we were diversifying how our procurement options and how we're going to go about business. So given that opportunity, it was really nice to work with all the different folks across our organization and our sister companies. In my time at Branch, I've always felt supported. I had I guess the fortune to have the leadership team had always encouraged females in management positions. We currently have our first female superintendent, which is very exciting for us. I hate that it took us to 2020 to be able to say that, but we have always, when I started, had females in a management position. So it's always been very encouraging that there was opportunity within our organization. I know that's not the case everywhere. I've had women come up to me and ask, you know, wow, how did that happen in your organization? Because that's not even a possibility within where I work. And it makes me sad that those conversations are happening even in the 2000s. So I'm super blessed to be in the spot that I am. I'm appreciative of Branch's open-mindedness. I have been on job sites where you can receive comments or not be as accepted as some of the guys, and you learn how to work through that and hopefully educate them along the way so that there's more opportunities for more women and they feel more comfortable getting into the role and into this business as we go forward.
Thank you very much, Cathy, for your comments. And now we'll turn it over to Lisa Wagman Glezer for her introduction.
Hey, thank you. So I'm a little bit of a different here. I actually am part of the 4th generation of a family business, but I did not pursue that initially. I mean, I grew up knowing that there's a family business there. I just didn't see myself having a place in it, which I think ties into one of the topics we'll be touching on today. And I think I was hesitant due to, you know, lack of the confidence and lack of awareness and the weight of the commitment. Obviously, it's not something to take lightly when you get involved with a family business, but my parents were very supportive of me pursuing my interests and letting me fly. So while I was in college, I actually was working my summers at Wagman, and that's what actually piqued my interest in pursuing business. And then after school, I moved to Boston and, you know, did my own and worked for an international news and media company, was promoted before I was 25, was managing client services and then media relations rep for New England. So nothing related to construction. But I knew what I knew and I knew what I didn't know. And at the same time, of course, Dad was talking to me about my future plans and long-term plans. And I remember when he told me, when I said, you know, it just seems so overwhelming, you know, that you don't need to be good at everything, but you need to surround yourself with a great team and good people. And I think that that's something that I've always carried with me. So when I came in back to the company, my husband and I made a big change. I started in business development on the commercial side and doing what I knew, what I was good at. You know, some of it was even convincing them the heavy civil side, we needed a website. You know, I think they're humoring me, but, you know, as we were transitioning into mega projects and hiring young talent and growing a diverse workforce, it was very key at that time. And we were kind of on the forefront of that. And then I had 3 kids in 5 years. I slowed things down a little bit. That was my choice, and took a few years and then geared back up to return full time when I found I was pregnant, you know, with number 4. But I did return full time at that point because we were going through a series of acquisitions in Virginia and we had a lot of work to do. But it was also a very exciting time. So I was overseeing, marketing, communications, proposals, pursuits, and now human resources as well. And I can't quite pinpoint when, but as a combination of my growing role, but other women were coming to me in hopes of increasing awareness for women in construction. And I really began to feel the responsibility as, the first female, owner and, leader at Wagman, to initiate the company's involvement and start seeking opportunities to develop women in construction. So, obviously our industry, political advocacy is a huge part of what we do. And that's something that I had been involved with at the very beginning with employee engagement. And then I had an opportunity to get more involved with our transportation industry PAC in Pennsylvania. I am now the vice chair of the Transportation Construction Industries Political Action Committee, and I am the first female officer there. A lot has obviously changed since joining the company in 2001, but diversity and inclusion has continued to evolve, as we've tripled in size and expanded our services with our 2 offices now in Virginia and a lot of our heavy civil volume. It's increasingly important to us and for recruitment and retention. We do have about 34% minority. So when we had started to have more Hispanics, building up our HR staff, our safety staff, more bilingual, in those areas, as well as field supervision was really important to all of our information. But then as female leaders, I think we have a responsibility to also be promoting inclusion and providing equal opportunities for women, all under this umbrella of diversity and inclusion. When I think back of some of the challenges, again, confidence, I think, is something that I'm now recognized more myself, which I would hope to touch on later, and see in other people, and how, I think we might all be able to work towards that. But also there are inappropriate and unwelcome gestures that continue in this day. And I really find it shocking, the things that I've experienced personally. And I worry that if it's happening to me as an owner of a company, what are other people experiencing? And I do think that is a big challenge for women in construction and in male-dominant industries in general. But at the same point, there's tons of support that I'm fortunate I've had. Obviously, my dad has been my greatest mentor. And, I do enjoy working with all my teams, men and women. I just have wonderful teams that I really appreciate everything that I've learned from all of them all the years. But I did get to a point that I wanted to benchmark some of the challenges that, I felt I was facing with helping to progress women. And I wanted to seek a mentor for some feedback and guidance and bounce some ideas off for perspective. So I was kind of set up with a woman who had spent her whole career in a male-dominated industry as well. I think that, seeking out mentors is great. Also getting involved with several other women associations, finding the right one is really important. I also joined NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction. They just had a great fall conference, which I really appreciated, made some really great connections there. But I think that the industry is, events like this, talking about things and increasing awareness and offering support for women in key positions is really exciting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I know we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of those topics later. For our final self-introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Cathy McGhee.
Thank you. So Lisa said that she felt like she was a little bit different when she started her introduction. I think I'm way off the reservation here in terms of my career path and my only tangential connection with construction. But I do work for VDOT, which obviously has quite a large construction program, and I'm very happy with my role there. I have to say, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the series of the books, a series of unfortunate events, but I feel like my career path is more like a series of very fortunate events. Many of them were just coincidence, things that, being in the right place at the right time, or having family that knew people and made connections. I started life as an Army brat. I don't know how many of you might have had military families growing up, but I was also the middle of 3 girls. So unlike Cathy, who had older brothers, I was the middle of 3 girls. And if you've ever been around girls, obviously a lot of us have since we are girls, when you're in the middle, you tend to be the peacemaker or the negotiator. You know, I had an older sister who was always right and a younger sister who was always cute. And so I found myself in the middle, solving problems between them. And I think I just stuck with that as I grew. Solving problems was something I enjoyed. Sometimes they were math problems, sometimes they were science problems, and sometimes they were people problems. But it was what I enjoyed, and so I just sort of pursued that. When it came time to go to college, I knew I wanted some kind of engineering because I did enjoy science and math. My dad happened to be a civil engineer, so it was the one kind of engineering I knew something about, and I picked it and never looked back. Probably that first fortunate event for me happened during my second year of college. I didn't go to Virginia Tech. I lived in California at the time, so my undergrad is from California. But my family is from Virginia, and one of my family members happened to be friends with someone whose husband worked at the Research Council. And they said, hey, we hire engineering students over the summer. Why doesn't your niece come back and work for us? And so I spent that summer on paving projects, taking asphalt cores for research projects. And if any of you work in the paving industry and have followed a paving crew in the middle of summer in Virginia, you would have thought that would have scared me away. But I loved it. I loved seeing how the research played into the real world and how it made a difference. And so I kept coming back until graduation, when I had to get a real job. And I made a turn in my career path and actually started pursuing traffic operations. And I had another fortunate event happen to me there, in that my first boss was really sort of pushing the envelope at the time. I'm old, and was a pioneer in the area of traffic operations and simulation. And so I found a real niche there that I enjoyed, and that actually led me to grad school. And in grad school, I landed back at the Research Council with a graduate research assistantship, and I never left. But I stuck with the operations field, eventually becoming the associate director for research in operations, and then in 2016 becoming the Research Council's first female director, more than 70 years after the Research Council was created. So it took a long time to have a woman in that position, but I'm really excited to have hit that milestone. In late 2018, the Secretary of Transportation, Shannon Valentine, asked if I would take on an additional role as the Director of Innovation in the Transportation Secretariat. And so now I have the opportunity to encourage innovation across all of the transportation modal agencies. And it's been just tremendously exciting. It's also quite a privilege to be part of the Secretary's office and to see how all of that works to bring improvements to transportation in Virginia. I want to speak for just a moment, though, about VDOT, since that is my home and where I've spent going on 30 years now. I think without question, it's a very traditional state DOT. Lots of men at the top, lots of men throughout the organization. But I think we are beginning to recognize that there is great value in diversity, diversity of opinions, diversity of perspectives. If everyone at the table looks and thinks exactly the same, you're never going to see anything differently or see innovation, which obviously is something that's very important to me. And so we've begun an initiative at VDOT, the VDOT of tomorrow, looking at how we begin to bring our skills, our workforce, our processes into the future so that we're prepared for what the future brings. As someone who spent a lot of time in research and in particular in operations, you know, we talk about automation and data science and those kinds of things, and that means a different skill set. It doesn't mean anybody has to leave the organization. It might mean that people need to learn new skills. And I think it's important that we begin to think about that as we look at our workforce and encourage them to stay, particularly those people within our workforce that represent those diverse sectors. So I'm really excited about where we are today in engineering. Certainly there are more women today than there were when I first started. Like someone else said, I can't tell you how many times I went into a meeting and was the only woman at the table. That's not, it's still the case sometimes, but not nearly as often as it used to be. So I think we're on the right path. We just have to remember to turn around and reach that hand back for the next woman to come so that we can continue the trend in the right direction. So thank you for having me here today. I look forward to the rest of our conversation.
Thank you, Cathy, and it's great to hear the common theme of women being the sole woman at the table in these conversations, because I'm sure probably every woman on this call has been in that situation in their workplace. But, you know, some of us are born into construction and some of us just love being outside and in the dirt and making a difference in our communities. And that is what moves us all forward. So I appreciate all of your comments and the diversity of backgrounds. And so now we'll jump into the panel questions. So Lisa, you started to allude to why women hesitate to join the industry and your hesitation as well. So we'll begin with you with why do you think women hesitate to pursue construction careers? And you started to touch on this too. What is your company doing to be inclusive? And our other three panelists are welcome to jump in at the conclusion of Lisa's comments.
Yeah, it's a big question. So this is probably my biggest answer because I am a little bit excited about this topic. And again, I just commend you for sponsoring it today. I think part of the reason is due to a lack of awareness. And by that, I think seeing how women can be successful in the construction industry. And then secondly would be that confidence issue, which just keeps coming up as a recurring theme, which I get to next. But we also, I think, can look at a lot of these things and they tie to hiring and retention. But first, I think, you know, you kind of need to acknowledge the challenges of the construction industry. I mean, it is a male-dominated industry. It's hard, demanding, dirty. It can be intense. There's often a lot of travel. I mean, we've all kind of talked about these different things, the demanding hours, and how it is working in a man's world. And that's not always appealing and it's challenging. And so if you have, you know, the easy button option or the uphill option, you know, there is, you know, some reputations, but I do think, as we've heard several people touch on, people are able to balance, you know, family, and it's trending in that direction. And it's not just for women. We have a lot of men who are coaching their kids' soccer teams, and I think that companies in general are just becoming more family friendly and allowing that balance to happen. You know, some positions more than others, but we 80% of women in construction, and I think we all need to be asking ourselves why. And I did that back a year or so ago, and there were a couple things that really struck me. Our pipeline of female applicants is not there. I had our human resources team pull some data, and when we looked at our career fairs in 2019, I'm not going to read all of them, but like Penn State Harrisburg, of 14 candidates, 3 were female. Penn College of Technology, where we get like operators and welders, 20 of our 29 applicants, 0 were female. Virginia VMI, 7 applicants, 1 was female, and at George Mason, of the 15, 2 were female. So what we're looking at is really, you know, 8% that are even considering to come. And, you know, we're not, that isn't even the 9%. So compare it, you know, we actually pulled some more recent information. Now, you know, we know we're all virtual and there's a lot of virtual career fairs happening since June of this year. And just highlight some of the Virginia ones. Virginia CareerWorks had a virtual event. We had 4 people we interviewed, 0 were female, who asked to be, to apply. And indeed, in hiring event in the Fredericksburg area, of the 18 who attended, only 1 was female. Another one, 19, 0 female. So VMI, of the 8 who attended, 0 were female. So when we look at this and we're getting 93% of the applicants are male and only 6.7% are female, it just really, you know, we have a pipeline issue. We don't have the applicants, and that's a challenge that I think we all need to look at. If you don't know what your numbers look like, I encourage you to take a look, because I know what we're doing next is kind of setting some goals and strategy, how we can increase that from an applicant perspective and reach out and get there. And I know we'll talk later about, you know, some things as an industry, but I think that those numbers are very telling, and just really kind of reinforce that, you know, at the end of the day, we all want the best, most qualified person, but we need to expand our applicant pool. As far as being inclusive, you know, it's a cultural shift, kind of like wearing a hard hat. You know, it makes sense and people aren't necessarily opposed, but sometimes we need training, increased awareness, accountability, walking the walk. And we, you know, made some specific changes, you know, going back about 15-ish years. You know, we have a woman on our outside board of directors. You know, naturally, we've actually had women in all of our support service areas, marketing, HR, IT, accounting, and I think we see that continue to evolve. And I mean, I am excited. We have superintendents in the field, operators, welders, women, but some simple changes like ordering women's cuts of shirts. I mean, acknowledging, you know, when you're ordering your t-shirts, like men and women, they're shaped differently. So we, ordering men's and women's, monitoring the photos that are going out, presentations, social media, making sure that you're adequately reflecting the diversity within the organization. That's something that we're constantly monitoring because we have it. We're at 34% diversity, but are we showing that? And is somebody monitoring that? So, you know, it's kind of, we talked about it, you know, how many of us have been in a room of all men, and in one of the NAWIC meetings, there were plenty of examples, but it's like, if you're a man, put yourself in a situation, you walk into a room of all women, you know, how do you feel? And I think it's, you know, those awareness trainings, you know, just talking about the issues like this, and also addressing unintentional biases. We've been doing that more, you know, just the awareness training on perception, because there's so many things that I think people do unintentionally, and they're just like, I need this many men on this job, I need this and this and this, and everything's men, men, men. And, you know, you're sitting right next to them, saying this. So I just, it's, you know, that they don't necessarily mean anything wrong, but it's just, it kind of happens in everyone. And some people are more, I don't know if offended is the right word, but people interpret it differently. I think that other ways of supporting inclusion, supporting membership in NAWIC, our female superintendent, our female safety manager. We have several members of NAWIC along with myself who joined the local chapter, and we celebrate Women in Construction Week in a big way. We try to make a big deal out of it. And, you know, for us, we are able to retain and grow women into new roles, which I think is really exciting for me. Some people who kind of were like me and they didn't see themselves necessarily working in construction, but they came in, they liked it, they're engaged, and they're growing out to new areas of the company and growing in different ways. So I do see all of this as, you know, worthwhile investment. And then the other part of that, you know, that I alluded to is that confidence side. Every single discussion, conference I've been to, that you always hear the confidence in women. I Googled it a while back, and there was an article in Forbes magazine about the confidence gap, and that women have less confidence than men and it doesn't equalize until their mid-40s. And I think that if we all don't admit our age and we reflect on a younger version of ourselves, we can all kind of see that evolution. But if we as managers and leaders look at our younger staff and know that the younger women probably aren't at the same confidence level as the men, I think there's a real opportunity to help them and motivate them. And a Cornell University study said that men overestimate their abilities and performance while women underestimate both. And in fact, their performance does not differ in quality or quantity. And a Hewlett-Packard internal report found that men will apply for a job or promotion when they meet 60% of the qualifications, whereas women will only apply when they meet 100%. And again, reflecting on that information now, I can see that pattern play out in so many people that I've worked with over the years. And I think that we need to acknowledge that if you don't see a woman apply, don't ever assume that they don't want something or they might be busy with something in their personal life, but maybe have the conversations, ask, support, encourage, because women are going to wait till they're 100%, but at the same time, you're going to probably have women who are fully engaged and committing themselves to giving 100%. So what we're trying to do is, educate managers and leaders, increase awareness, and just try to develop people more effectively. I mean, just one example would be, I was on a project job site with one of our PMs, and he just was raving about this engineer partner that he was working with. He's like, she's young, she knows her stuff. I just wish she would speak up more. And another partner validated this. And I said, give her that opportunity to speak and validate her comments, because that's probably all she needs. And he's telling me this, and he wanted me to meet her. I'm like, but he had that ability, I think, to really support her in her role. So thank you.
Do any of our other panelists like to chime in on what their companies are doing?
But I just want to emphasize something Lisa said a couple of times. The ability to see yourself in a role is so important. Not only just to spark interest or excitement, but to build that confidence. If you can't see yourself there, if you've got no role model, if you've got no reason to believe that you can do it, your confidence is not going to be up to the task. And so I think that's why it's so important that all of us find ways to not only be that role model, but to seek out, as Lisa said, to seek out those women who could use a little bit of a confidence boost, to find ways to let them be heard. Most of the time, you're going to be the one who benefits when you do that. And so I just wanted to underscore what Lisa said, because I think it's so important.
I would also like to echo that. And as we made the acquisition of this site down in Georgia, this was a site in which had 25% women, which is unusual for all of our heritage operations. I was typically the only woman out in operations. And for each of those women, as I've gone around and talked to them throughout the past 2 years, one thing that sticks out resoundingly is that before I moved down into a leadership role on this site, they thought that they were going to stay in a laborer position for their entire career, because they had no idea that there was an opportunity for them to move up. And so taking the time to have those conversations with them and really understand what their goals are, what they enjoy doing, what is it about their job, and then what opportunities are paired or could be paired for them in the future, whether at the company, at that site, or other sites around the company.
The only thing I'd like to add is, I think one of the reasons women and young ladies particularly hesitate to go into the construction industry is just a perception issue, right? I think we need to increase the education of our colleagues and for our younger folks about what the opportunities are. There are a lot of different career paths and options within the construction industry, but if you just sit back and think construction in general, as Lisa said, it's dirty, it's it's hot, it's cold, it's not always the easiest path, but there are a lot of wonderful opportunities within each of our companies that isn't necessarily the path that they think that they're seeing. And so I think education goes a long way, and exposure early to let folks know what the opportunities are. It's really intimidating too, as a young woman thinking about a family. I too have had, as Lisa said, four kids throughout my career here. And if you are thinking about that when you're going in, it doesn't seem like the easiest path, because it's definitely harder. I had a wonderful superintendent that I worked with, and when I showed up after my maternity leave, he had installed blinds on all the trailer windows and a lock on the door. And that didn't exist before that, and a little fridge. And it was just those like little thoughtful things that he did. He didn't even talk to me, you know, he just did that. And so that was encouraging to me as a young female professional, that, yeah, it's okay, I can be in the field, because they're accepting. But I know that's not always the case, but a lot of it's just education and changing perceptions.
That's awesome that your superintendent did that. I'm sure that made you feel seen, and that your team was aware of what your challenges were, and they were there for you to support you through that. So that's really cool. And you started to answer this question, Cathy. Where do you see opportunities for women in construction today? I can turn that to Cathy McGhee to start, or Cathy Underwood, if you'd like to take that one. The floor is yours.
Start by saying I think the question is bad. I think it's not an either-or scenario. I think women can have a role and make meaningful contributions wherever their skills and interests lead them. There's no question that some people are more suited to a field environment, and others prefer the office work, and I think we need to support those choices. But I would never want us to limit anyone's future based on gender. I told this story to the other panelists when we met last week, that I'm old enough that when I was in high school, you met with your guidance counselor to make choices, make decisions about where you were going after high school, what path you were going to take. And foolish me, I went into the guidance counselor's office and said, I want to be an engineer. I'm going to be an engineer. And my guidance counselor looked at me and said, girls aren't engineers. Be a nurse, be a teacher, but you can't be an engineer. That's not how things work. And I don't mean to say anything bad about nurses or teachers. Some of my best friends are teachers, and my mom was a nurse, and those are great career paths, but they weren't for me. And for someone to limit my future opportunities because they felt like a particular role wasn't meant for women was wrong. I have 2 boys. I don't have any girls. But I wouldn't want that to happen to them either. In fact, one of my sons, I think, would have perhaps chosen teaching as a career, but felt like that wasn't something boys did. And I think it's wrong in both directions. And so I think we need to move away from these gender stereotypes. I do have great hope for the future, though. I think high schools in particular, and even middle schools in lots of areas, are getting much better at providing girls with opportunities that expose them to a variety of potential paths. I serve on the Career and Technical Education Committee here in my local rural county, and I'm so encouraged to see the number of girls participating in building trades increasing. In fact, we took a field trip to our local community college, and everyone was amazed that this young woman scored the highest of anyone who had ever done the welding simulator. Very proud of her, but I have to say I'm a little disappointed that everybody was shocked that she got the best score. I think attention to detail has a lot to do with that. But I think it's time we moved away from thinking of particular career paths or roles as men's jobs or women's jobs, and started thinking about them as jobs for everyone. In order to really be successful, though, in leveling that playing field, Lisa mentioned this briefly in her response to the previous question, we've got to be more accommodating of a work-life balance. I think COVID has taught us a lot of things, but it has certainly taught us that people need that balance in their lives, and they need to be able to attend to family as well as work. And that's been a struggle. It's been a struggle for VDOT as we try to manage the needs of our workforce, and I'm sure it's been a struggle across all of your companies as well. But if we don't figure out how to do that, we will never keep women in the workforce. As much as I'd like to believe it's not the case, women still bear the majority of that home life duty. I think I'm pretty lucky. I have a pretty good partner in life who has always taken on a good share of those duties, but I'm still a mom, and my kids still waited until I got home to cry when they got hurt when I wasn't here. So some of those things are never going to change, and we have to find ways to support women so that they can manage that balance across their careers. Oh, I have to add, so just as a point of proof that we are moving past gender stereotypes and restrictions, did anyone see Sarah Fuller kick the extra points on Saturday? So the first woman in a Power 5 school to score. And I think that's an awesome indication that perhaps we're making more progress than we have in the past.
Thank you, Cathy. And forgive us for the oddly phrased question. I've heard a lot of people say that women are especially detail oriented, and that is one thing that makes them successful in construction, whether that be in operating equipment or something like that. So that, I think that was kind of the wavelength we were on. Where are the opportunities for women? Like, what skills do women have that will help them excel? Maybe detail oriented is one of them. But great commentary nonetheless. So the next question we're going to turn towards Cathy Underwood. Is there something in the short term we can do, we being the association, we being any person on this call's individual company, is there anything that we can do at the local level, whether that be within the legislature, the community colleges, or high school? What can HCCA do, and what can each individual on this call do to promote women in construction?
So the short answer is absolutely. There's, I do think there are things that we can all be doing to encourage more women into construction. And really it's about intentional outreach and starting early. Find ways to, whether it's through internships and inclusion, making sure that we're being inclusive when we consider those internships. Lisa shared a lot of, I'll say, kind of scary statistics with us because the pool is not out there, but really starting earlier in the high schools and CTE schools where we can get in and really talk to the leaders of those CTE programs. As Cathy McGhee said, she's on the committee that helps develop the CTE focus for her county. I think all of us can do those types of outreach. We can participate in career fairs at both high school and college levels. We had an opportunity to sponsor a girls in construction camp at a community college in Roanoke, and it was really wonderful. I had an opportunity to go guest speak to those young ladies one day, and it was one of the most energizing days that I've had actually in my career, because they were in there, they were hands-on, they were building stuff, and they had just a level of excitement about what they were learning. and had a lot of questions about how to move forward. And actually, circling back, confidence was one of the topics that we covered together while we were in there. But I think just, you know, a focused discussion and really outreaching in these opportunities at much younger ages. I was thinking even the touch a truck that a lot of the communities are doing, that is really encouraging at a very young age. And really, if you're like me, my oldest kids go, even when we take the youngest kids to a touch a truck event, it really opens them, not just to construction, but really a lot of predominantly male dominated industries are represented in those types of events. And so really attending and hosting those and participating and talking kind of beyond the obvious, you know, honking the horn of the truck, but really what's really going on at some of these different industries. It's about education and exposure. The other thing I think we can all do is focused education to our current employees and make it a more accepting place to work. So some of it is challenging because the writing on the porta-john is really intimidating, right? And so educating folks about being inclusive when there are other folks on the job site, when there's females around, and when they're not around, right? We should all be maybe raising the bar. So it definitely reaching out and creating those internships and targeting inclusion is key.
I invite our other panelists to chime in. What else can HCCA and our individual firms do?
Actually, I want to add on, there's a number of, I'll say, hidden opportunities that different organizations and HCCA included host competitions for both engineering and construction. So I'm part of another organization called A4LE, and it's a K-12 or education-based organization. And so we host a program for middle school students to actually design a K-12 school design around a certain criteria. And it's very hands-on, and they build a model, and then they do the BIM modeling, and they actually present the data. So finding those opportunities, because those teams need mentors. And so you can bring in different disciplines, and so kids can be exposed to whether it's the design side, you know, how materials work together, how to build it, and things to think about. Those are all really good ways to start much earlier in students' paths and help encourage them and really just broaden their knowledge base and their horizon about what career opportunities there are.
Yeah, I would agree. You got to start early before they start to hear those gender biases about particular career paths. The sooner you expose all children to the possibilities, the wider their viewpoint will be. And I think opportunities like camps and as we begin to think about older youth apprenticeships and important, let them see themselves in those roles and try them on for size. Find ways to engage them. But you can start so young with popsicle bridge competitions, and the Women in Transportation group here locally does a Transportation U camp where they invite girls from local schools to different activities and women and hear about what their can see themselves. But you got to start early, or the rigidity of the mind sets in and you've lost your opportunity.
One more thing that I haven't heard mentioned, field trips with high schoolers has been hugely popular when given the opportunity. And if you can set up, a safe opportunity for them to come visit the job sites, they love it, the schools love it, and you have an opportunity to show them that you have men, women, diversity on you know, your job site. So I think that if you can bring them out, that, I mean, who can go to a job site and not be like, wow. So I think that that's, you know, a great opportunity also to, you know, organize those, whether it's through an association, a company, but those types of opportunities.
I also think to a story that Lisa shared at last week, in that they changed all of their signs, and we've seen these all driving on the highways, you know, men working. And one thing that their company did was change it to women and men working. And I think as a child driving with my parents on the side of the road and seeing women and men working instead of just men working, something as simple as that could really open the eyes of you know, our younger generation.
Yes. We rolled those out during Women in Construction Week a couple years ago, and they were very well received. And it's one of those things that it was actually, I can't take full credit because I saw it in an article in New York that a company had done something like that. Simple. We ordered them to mount on fences, job site trailers, and, you know, I mentioned it to our, you know, our executive committee, and they're like, sure. We rolled it out during Women in Construction Week. I think there was one of the photos on the slide at the beginning, and that was with the Secretary of Transportation, because women get so excited when they see it. And then the other picture was when I was with two of my colleagues, actually after a NAWIC meeting. We went to a job site, and there were two signs on a fence that said men at work. And on one of the signs, they put a WO in front of the men, because, you know, they didn't graffiti both of them, just the one, to have women at work and men at work. It wasn't our job site because it would have had the other sign. But I thought that was really telling that all they wanted was to be treated and acknowledged, you know, treated equally and acknowledged that they're not a man. So I think that, you know, those are all steps that we can take, and as simple as adding a men and women at work sign on a job site. Very popular. It went over very well. I have to say some of them have disappeared to other companies and DOTs who were excited to see signs like that.
Great commentary, ladies. Thank you very much. And I think it would be great to see more of our companies with signs that say men and women working, and I'm hoping that everybody on this call is inspired by that and might make a change in the coming years. And speaking of the coming years, let's talk about our vision for the future. Where would you like to see construction workforce 20 years down the road, whether we're talking about gender norms or system changes? What would be your vision for the future? And we will start with Katie.
Yeah, so I think on the most basic level, one thing that I think about for all the women and diversity in our industry, and Lisa alluded to this, is I'd love to see the same number of options in terms of PPE and steel toes that the men have. When I go to Red Wing and try and pick out a pair of boots, I don't have the number of options that men do. Cintas and the other uniform companies don't offer the line of uniforms that that our male counterparts do. So something as simple as that, I think, would really help encourage women and foster a place where we can all, you know, work comfortably. I think the next thing that I really think about, and we've alluded to this the whole time, is just more women and diversity across all different ranks of the construction and mining industries. I think one thing that's going to be key to getting us there is more support networks. So whether it's associations or companies, whatever that may look like, as we see more women enter these leadership roles or these operations roles, fostering an environment where they could communicate with one another and just talk about the challenges that we face on a daily basis that men might not have privy to. Just having some sort of network where we can all work together and support one another. And then the last piece that I've heard mentioned a couple of times is more of a work-life balance. I can speak for the mining industry and specifically in operations, but in the big mines and mines across the world, we're working 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's really hard to do when you're a mother or when you have a family. I think about one initiative that Luck led a few years ago in limiting the number of hours that our associates worked to 55, so that folks didn't have to feel like they had to miss soccer games or not be able to spend the weekends with their family. And I really think if we're going to attract women into operations roles, especially in the mining industry, our organizations and our associations are going to have to figure out a way that we can navigate that and allow women and diversity to have their families outside the gates.
Thank you, Katie, and I invite our other panelists to chime in your vision for the future 20 years down the road.
For me, it would be that that it's already inclusive, and so we're not having to have specialized discussions about how to get more women into the conversation and into the workforce at all levels, that we're just focused on more people in general, and hopefully at that point we have gained interest and it's not as big of an issue. But I do think it will always be a challenge when we talk about workforce and numbers, but hopefully it doesn't have to be just female focused. And when you walk into a conference room, it won't be abnormal to have other women at the table. Right now it feels very normal to walk in and it's all men, and it's actually abnormal to walk in and there's multiple women at the table. And so hopefully someday that doesn't feel so weird.
I agree. I'm part of the fourth generation, and my grandfather left us the gift of his memoirs. And as I've read those several times, there's no mention of women in any role except for his wife or kids. And when I think of like where the company started, and when I used to visit my dad at work as a kid, and there were only 2 secretaries in the office, and it was all men. And I see where we are today, like everyone's mentioned, we've had so much progress. I think we're facing a COVID challenge. There's been a lot of discussion about how women in the workforce will have a setback with COVID and leaving to accommodate families, and what the long-term effects of that will be. But we're also looking at this generation that's being raised with unisex names, female candidates, and the White House, and now having, leadership everywhere, that, it's just so much different the way the times are changing. I think that we have so much momentum for women, overcoming so many different barriers. But do I think construction will ever be 50-50? I mean, we've already acknowledged the hours, the challenges. I'm doubtful, but I'd love to be wrong. I mean, but I think we're going to also see careers that women will continue to dominate and be really successful at. I think, we just need to look at where we think women can be most successful, celebrate that success, and just keep growing the progress. And I just, I think it's been awesome just being part of this today with all of you and hearing how everyone's coming together. And it's discussions like this that will continue to help move these conversations forward.
"20 years from now, let's have a conversation about work-life balance for everyone, not work-life balance for women only." I think that benefits all of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for your comments. At this time, we'll open the floor up for questions. TJ asked a great question in the chat box, and maybe our panelists would like to chime into that as well. He said, "I have 2 girls, 12 and 10, with the younger brother 7. What would your advice be to a father of those 2 girls to encourage and build the confidence they would need to lead our industry?"
Ashley, I'd like to add on to that question a little bit as well. I got some great answers already, but I think COVID plays a lot into this as well. As a father, I think I was doing very, to my own horn, I was doing well at being a dad of 2 girls. My youngest daughter in elementary school was the president of her student body. My middle girl was well into hunting. So all of your all's information here really hit home. But I think COVID has actually taken us all a step back in that, or me anyway, as a father now, with those 2 girls, in the fact that I can't get them out and socially interact and build their confidence anymore. They're not going to school. They're not, everything is this virtual stuff. So any ways to continue to build confidence when we're in this restructure would be greatly appreciated, because like I said, I think it's all new territory for everybody, but any guidance is well received.
So I'd like to hit on that just a second. So for me, I have 3 girls and 1 son, and our son is the 3rd. And you would think, being a female in construction and a part of this panelist, it just naturally happens. But I have to keep myself very in tune with what I'm saying, even to my own children, and the opportunities we offer them. My son will jump up in a heartbeat to grab tools and run out and help and fix and do, and he can name every piece of construction equipment and has been able to since he's 2. I mean, it's just naturally something he's interested in. And so I spend a lot of time trying to encourage the girls to do the same types of things, at least to expose them. They may not love it, and it may not be their passion, and that's okay too, but I don't want it to not be something that they understand that they have an opportunity to consider. And so a lot of it, even in COVID for us, it becomes, instead of being out and about and in their schools, it's opportunities around the neighborhood to help and learn different skills that they might not be learning when they're in the classroom. And we live out in a rural area, so those opportunities are more available to them than they might be to others. But just keeping top of mind, to me, it sounds like you're doing a great job, because it's already on your mind. And so a lot of it is about awareness and in conversation and encouraging them. I mean, you can't say it enough, like, confidence is huge, and encouragement.
Thank you.
I have to echo that, because again, I was the middle of 3 girls. My dad had no sons; he only had daughters. But I never felt less than. I mean, he spent so much time with us when we were growing up, doing things that interested us, but also exposing us to things that interested him. And I think I can remember calling home from college one time, and clearly he was distracted, and he yells out, "Hat trick." Now, I don't know how many of you watch hockey and know that a hat trick means somebody just scored their 3rd goal. But then he spent the next 30 minutes explaining to me what a hat trick was. And I didn't really care. But the fact that he was sharing something with me that was important to him just made my day. And so I would just encourage you to talk to your girls. And just, not every conversation has to be monumental or has to be career defining for them. It's just a matter of talking to them on an equal level that will automatically build their confidence and make them feel like they can have those conversations with anyone. And so I agree with Cathy that it sounds like you're doing a great job. Just keep doing it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? We have great conversation happening in the chat box if anyone hasn't referred over to there.
If I could,
And I agree with, I'm sorry.
Cathy. Sorry,
No, I
Cathy.
was just-
I'm a little bit older than TJ. I'm going to show my age here. My daughter is 32 with 2 children. And I would say within the next couple of years, she's going to be looking to get back into the workforce. So, I mean, all of you have seemed to have had your children and worked or gotten back into the workforce. Do you have any suggestions as to how to work in the background and help bring that, or help her make that evolution back into the workforce?
Don't be hard on yourself, which is easier said than done. But I think that when I look back, I reduced my hours and I tried to give 100% to everyone. And I didn't want people to know I wasn't full-time. And I put too much on myself that I probably didn't need to at that time. So I just encourage to be deliberate in, whatever increment she returns to work. She's choosing her time now, and she's probably right where she should be and enjoying that time. and knowing that when she's ready, she's probably going to have all those same talents and attributes and be a well-rounded person, and just know what she's like. I think one of my original comments, know what you know and know what you're good at, and know how to utilize the team and the people around you to work together, and just give her the confidence that she's great at what she knows and does, and she's going to have a great team. She just needs to work with them, but to go in to that she knows what she's good at and just to do her thing.
Excellent.
That'd be my advice.
Yeah, I never completely left the workforce. Like Lisa, I did cut back my hours when my boys were really young. I think it's harder if you go completely away from the workforce for some period of time to come back. As a woman, I do think that that's harder. But I would say staying connected to your professional network, staying connected in organizations will help you make that return easier. It's tough. It's tough. I think, like Lisa, I didn't want anyone to know that I had gone part-time. So I probably worked more hours than I should have. But I think it is important to have that balance and to take that time when it feels right to you.
The only thing I would add too is in your personal life, so it takes energy, and it's going to take some focus to get back into the workforce and reconnect and make all those connections. And as Lisa and Cathy said, it's hard because you're not wanting people to think that you're giving less than 100%. But in order to do that, then something at home has to give too. And that was hard for me to mentally be okay that my house might not look as amazing as someone else's. And it didn't. And but you have to process that, because for a long time, we've also potentially could have been brought up thinking your house is supposed to look perfect in case someone stops by at any time. And that's a tough balance. It's hard on you mentally, and it's hard on you physically. And so being okay that you cannot keep all the balls in the air 100% to the level you might have before is really important to acknowledge within yourself, and to find similar folks going through the same challenges so you can share ideas and bounce things off. With the internet and social media these days, that is a plus, if there is one, for some of those things. It really can bring you together with other folks who are having similar challenges. But just being able to understand that your house may not be perfect, or whatever it is that you have to not do. Maybe it's not cooking every meal every night, and that's okay. Your kids will live on, they can have chicken nuggets every now and then and still be okay.
After 4 kids, it's the relative theory. It's relatively clean, relatively fed, relatively happy.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Panelists, any final thoughts before we let you all go? This has been an excellent conversation, very educational, very eye-opening in a lot of different ways. I'm sure many people on the call are feeling the same way. So I welcome any final comments before we close out.
I'll just thank everyone for taking the time to be part of this and moving the conversation forward, and just encourage everyone to keep it going.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Cathy. And thank you, Katie. And thank you all participants on this call today. This is being recorded, so it will be available on YouTube to refer back to or to share to your colleagues. And thank you all again for being here and for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting, Ashley.
Thank you. We'll see you in January with Chair Phyllis Randall, advertising out tomorrow.